welcome to Chat with Kat, which apparently I have made into a thing. I am so excited today to be joined by Lauren Boyher. She's one of our counselors at Cambridge Elementary School. And when we first started talking about doing this, we really wanted to center our conversation on what our elementary school kids and our elementary parents might be experiencing during this crisis, like specifically that population. But before we start our conversation, I really just want to brag on Lauren for a minute. So Lauren absolutely radiates joy and passion in her work with elementary students. If you or your child has had interactions with Lauren, then you already know that. Secondly, if you want to know anything, and I mean anything about character ed, she's the one to ask. She spearheads the character ed initiatives at Cambridge. And then also she's involved at the national level with character.org. So that's an incredible honor. And we are incredibly lucky to have her in our district. So I am thrilled to be chatting with Lauren today. I want to hear what she has on her heart and in her mind since all this shelter at home stuff has begun and continuous learning has started. So, Lauren, when we first started talking about doing this today, what were some of the things that came to your mind first?
Well, thank you, first of all, for the unexpected intro. So I appreciate you so much. And I really love the idea of being able to really speak to parents and our community in this direct way. We are so accessible, but I do think that sometimes we forget, and that there are so many of us in the district, and I want parents to know that we are there for them and we are really thinking about them, and they have been on our hearts. And I do think that so many of the things that you and Michelle discussed in the first video chat was very applicable, honestly, to the elementary age as well, specifically in the area of trauma. I started really connecting with that because I've had a lot of conversations with parents and teachers about what is a realistic expectation for our children right now in so many capacities, specifically in learning, but then also what is home life supposed to look like? And I use that word in major quotations, right? Supposed to. So we are all functioning on such a different capacity right now. And I do want everyone to give themselves that grace that we are not at 100% functioning right now. And we have to acknowledge that and know that we have to basically lower the expectations we have for ourselves and then thus our children and what they're going to be able to accomplish right now and be okay with that. There's no normal right now.
I'm so glad that you said that, because one of the things Michelle and I did talk about that first go round was about, comparing yourself to what you're seeing other people doing on social media. And, there are some pretty extraordinary individuals in our world, right? And some of them are really killing it with this homeschool thing. Some of us are not, and so really what you just said, that we're not at 100%. I don't know if we realize that. I think we feel like I'm healthy, so I'm at 100%. I get up and I get going and I still am employed, which I'm very lucky. But I really am not at 100%. So I'm glad you said that, because we can say that about ourselves, but we also need to say that about our kids. And they might appear that they're 100%.
I do think it is very similar in that sense too, in the way that we look at the security component for kids. I've read this fabulous article about regression, and I'm a parent of an elementary child, so I even have that unique perspective going, and just seeing the need for that close physical contact all the time. It's really about needing to feel safe and secure in such an unbelievable time for them. We as grown-ups don't have a way to process this. They certainly don't have a way to process this. So their number one thing that they're needing is to feel that security and to hear that reassurance from us that we're doing X, Y, and Z to be safe. so that they understand there's a plan. I do think kids at that elementary level really respond to understanding that there is somebody in charge, right? we know that they have no control over everything right now. Mm-hmm. Well, that's really hard for kids. They're going to start taking control where they can. I think a lot of parents are seeing that in schoolwork. This is the only thing they have control over, whether or not they're going to do their work. And well, okay, so we have to give them some choices. You can do math now or reading now. You can do this project for math, or you can do this project for math. If we allow and open up some room for choice, those students will start to feel that greater sense of control, which will then trickle into other parts of their lives where they're seeing, okay, things do feel out of control, but I also know that the grown-ups are doing what they need to do also.
So I want to ask a question about regression because I actually have seen a little bit of regression in my early middle school child. And so I want to know if you can just kind of give some more details about what that might look like. I can say regression for my kiddo at the 6th grade level has looked like almost a lot of walking down memory lane. There's been a lot of discussion about what it used to be like when she was little, and when I was younger. And do you remember when we did this and that? And I really kind of, in a way, consider that regression. But can you talk a little bit more about what it might look like for other kiddos?
So I think that what we are hearing right now is you can be talking about any number of levels, up to and including like nighttime bedwetting. We're talking some serious levels of regression. And really what the medical community, it sounds like, are saying is, let's not tackle that. Like, let's understand that that could be a symptom of what's going on right now versus something to be angry about, right? Because sometimes we do get frustrated and it comes out as that anger. And really, we need to make sure our kids' basic needs are being met. And that basic need of connectivity is a huge component, right? So they are wanting to have those conversations and those stories. They want to hear from you about all kinds of different things that you may have never even talked about with your kids before, because they want to have some kind of connection with you, and they're just going to keep digging until they find every part of it, because that builds that security component for them. So I do think it really starts with just making sure those basic needs are being met. My one thing that we've really been trying to focus on prior to all of this, my home time was my time with my kids, right? I was very clear with them that they knew when I was here, I was all in for them. I really tried to get all of my work done while I was at school. So the balance that I'm trying to keep at this point is a challenge, because the feedback I get is, you're not paying attention to me. Are you still doing that? Why are you still talking to people? So we're really trying to set aside time where they know I'm going to be all in with them. So making sure they know that time is coming, even if it's not right now, even if it's later in the day, but they know that that time is coming for us to connect, for them to be with me, to be together as a family, doing something outside, whatever that needs to look like, for that sense of security to be built in.
I am so glad you said that, because I've had a couple conversations just this week. And I think this week is different because this is the week we found out that we are not returning to school.
Right.
So I think in a lot of ways we kind of shifted, all of us across the board shifted. And there was this deflation of, we're not going back. Okay. I'll pull myself together. Okay. It's, not the light is not there at the end of the tunnel anymore. And so I've had a lot of conversations about finding a space within your home that is your workspace, because it was all feeling very temporary. Like I can just be wherever I feel like being, right to do my video chats. And I think one of the things that I've heard from a couple people, parents, is you cannot divide between being a parent and doing your job when you're on a video chat in the dining room, right? Because your child doesn't understand the difference. It's not that we can't switch, because we can to the best of our ability. Like, okay, hold on, Lauren, I'm going to address the needs of my child. I could do that, but my child doesn't get that I am not mom right now. They see me and they want me to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Right? That they
Absolutely.
and they want to sit on my lap and be part of whatever it is that I'm doing, even if it's this super important meeting or recording, So for parents out there that have discovered, oh man, this is not a temporary situation, I would really encourage you, find a space that has a door, even if it's a closet. Get some good lighting. It does, but the door for me has helped because I was in a different space and it wasn't working, and I just found a space that had a door. And it's a nice note, but there is a note on the door, but that will help with what you're saying, that we can do the connection and I can be 100% mom as soon as I walk out of that space.
I love that. I'm actually going to have to think about how to make that happen at my house, because I am, as you say, at my dining room table right now, and my daughter will come in and she will sit here and I can see the pantry from here, and she will be in there asking for whatever it is she thinks she needs at that moment.
Air quotes. So one of the other things that we had talked about, especially in terms of elementary school kids, is friendships and social skills. And I know that you had some thoughts and some kind of new information even on that. I would love to hear.
I really, it's just my observations. I think that what I'm seeing, because our kids are needing that social time, that connection, not only with us, but with each other, it's a big struggle at the elementary level. They don't have access to phones and social media to connect with their peers, right? They are completely isolated in their home, even more so if they're an only child, right? They are there with their parents, and that's about it. So one of the things that I really think that we need to be considering is, how are we building that capacity for kids? This is the age that they are supposed to be learning friendship skills, how to be a friend, how to talk to friends, how to have normal social interactions in such an abnormal capacity right now. So it's really had me thinking about different platforms for kids, because I know that there's some apps out there like Messenger for kids, and certainly my son uses my FaceTime, but I need my phone. So what are we how can we help our kids while also balancing? I know a lot of parents are concerned about the amount of screen time, but I will say, at this point, we really have to consider what isolation is doing to our little ones. And if their way of connecting with each other has to be through a screen, we do have to find a healthy balance for them. I mean, my son is 6 in first grade, and he misses his friends so much. That's what his school day is really about, turns out, being with his friends. So I'm so thankful for our district, because they've prioritized every morning, those kids are with their classmates on Google Meet, meeting with each other, having that interaction time with their teachers, with their friends. But that's still in an academic type of a setting, which still isn't a normalized interaction between friends. And I think that they're experiencing a little bit of what older kids start to see on social media, which is, well, they haven't called me back, or I can't get a hold of them because they're doing something else. And then they only can start imagining what could possibly be going on at the other end of this friendship. And I do think it's something we really need to start looking into the longer this goes on, is just reconsidering how we're socializing our kids right now, and making sure they have some access to friends, some way to communicate outside of just that academic setting. And even if it's reaching out to parents that we don't know that well, and we're just having to do that, is, well, that's fine. I don't really know his mom, but let's figure this out, right? Because you need that and he needs that time.
And, at the elementary level, that's reaching out to parents that you don't really know is a lot easier. Like, I will say, as your kids get older, it is embarrassing to your kids that you're reaching out to their friend's parent, like, why would you do that when I'm in high school? Because I'm a diligent parent. But in elementary school, that is how we get things accomplished is, we know it takes a village. And so we find out, oh, okay, what's your new friend's name? Okay, now I'm going to go on the deep dive to find out who the parent is and text them and, make this happen. But the deep dive is harder to do when we're all in isolation, right? Because I might, stand next to somebody at the class party and be like, hey, do you know so-and-so's mom? And that's how I find out who they are. And then I can text and we can set up a play date and all that. It's more complicated under these circumstances, but it can be done. And, I had a thought today because I heard about a group that was doing something really fun. There's a lot of adults out there doing really fun activities.
Because we need the same social time. We're missing that interaction.
Right.
We're being proactive.
Lots of virtual, gatherings happening. And the virtual scavenger hunt that I heard about, I thought, gosh, that's fun. And I'm thinking about it for me, right? That'd be so much fun. But it's fun for our kids too. And as a parent, that's definitely something you could set up that isn't going to take a whole lot of effort. You just have to reach out to the parents and say, hey, I'm doing a virtual scavenger hunt for the kids. Have them log in at this time. And I'm just going to send them around the house to find various objects and they get points. And then whoever wins, I will mail them a prize, which will be a picture that my kid drew, whatever. But I think that's just one small example of what you're talking about is giving our kids that chance to interact outside of the educational setting.
Right. And I think kids at every level are feeling that, they have access to their classmates through the academic time, but, we are limited on, that and the fact that they have, school expectations they're still trying to meet, but they're not meeting that expectation of social interaction that's automatically built into their normal school day and is no longer built in that way. Think about the older kids, their passing times between classes and their lunch times and all these other built-in times to be with peers is absent in this type of a setting.
Right. And so, and because we are not all functioning at 100%, right. That's why I decided to do these chat with cats, just to kind of give a different perspective of how to look at the situation, because a lot of times we feel like we're just underwater right now, just doing the best I can to keep my head above water, get my kids to do their schoolwork. And then, oh man, there's all these other things that I have forgotten or set aside. And so by no means is this pressure from you or me to parents and say, you have to do these things. It's just a different perspective. And
I think it brings us full circle around to that beginning conversation about regression, because what you can see when we get overwhelmed is our emotions are so high and they're right there at the surface. So I think the more pressure kids are under, you're going to see regression, as your question earlier, could look like that over emotionality, that inability to cope with life, kind of those toddler types of behaviors when their feelings were bigger than their body. And I think that you're going to see that across all age levels right now, because all of our feelings are right there, even as adults. I know.
I mean, I had to give myself a timeout. And I'm not lying. I was at full capacity the other day, and before I got put in timeout by someone else, I thought it was best if I just did it myself and went to my room. And because we're all, and I like how you said that, we're just at full capacity. It's and when we're toddlers, the reason they're throwing tantrums is because they don't have the ability to cope with those emotions or to communicate those, what's going on with them internally. And so we're not expecting to go backwards right now, but I think parents need to be aware we might be going backwards, as as we are in this place where we're not quite sure what's going on and our kids don't know what's going on and they're getting emotional and then they don't know how to communicate that.
And I think the key to being a parent in that example is the same as when we had toddlers throwing temper tantrums. You have to model the expected behavior, right? As difficult as it is, the more you escalate, the more they're going to see you out of control, and they will escalate because they're going to match you. So the calmer you can be and to talk in that calm and rational tone, they're not only seeing what the expected behavior is, but they're going to start learning some of those coping skills from you. And sometimes, I mean, I have to talk through it with my kids, is just say, same with the timeout, right? Mommy needs a timeout right now, but I'm going for a walk or I'm taking some deep breaths, and I will do it really emphatically in front of them because I want them to see that I'm not perfect and I have to use my strategies. And then when they're going, I can start doing some of those strategies that they can start modeling because they've seen it before. And I do think that that's really helpful right now, is not going match for match on our kids' energy, even though we are feeling that, is really trying to demonstrate that level of self-control, as hard as we might have to dig down to access it sometimes. But that's really going to put our kids in that secure space because they can see you're in control as the adults. And that's what they can need to keep seeing is we've got this. And then that will bring their security and their comfort level back down too, that level of reassurance.
I absolutely love that. And as you're chuckling through, like, you really have to dig deep, I'm laughing with you because I'm thinking, yeah, we do. Sometimes practicing what we preach can be very hard. We're human too. But we need reminders like this.
I would never want to give anyone watching the wrong idea to think that we have all the answers and that we're not feeling it too. So let's just be clear there.
Right. I mean, I just told everybody I gave myself a timeout. So, well, is there anything else that you have on your heart and mind before we end?
My only other point, I think, at the elementary level is just monitor what they're seeing, what they're hearing, making sure they have age level appropriate information, but turn the TV off because they don't really understand what's being said and they're filtering it through their little minds. And that's just going to cause more anxiety. So anything we can do to protect what they're hearing and to not generalize. I realized I was using the word germs instead of COVID, which was important for me to realize because my 4-year-old thinks when she hears germs that all germs are this bad, right? Because that's her filter. And thinking, okay, this is a different kind of a germ, and this is the thing we're doing because of this germ versus germs are bad, right? So just keep remembering that they have a different filtration system than us, and to be mindful of it, what they're hearing, and being during those times of being present with them, making sure we're asking the questions. Do you have any questions today? Did you hear anything that you're confused about? Like, let's put it all out on the table.
That's a really great idea. And a suggestion I give to people all the time is if you are faced with a difficult conversation with your child, give them what you're comfortable with and then open it up for questions. And they will probably go there. They're probably going to ask the questions that you're not wanting to answer, but they're asking the questions because they want to know. And keeping in mind, I like that you said filtration system, that it's different than ours. But opening it up for questions because their curious little brains have so much going on, more than we ever know, really.
I heard it years and years ago, and I use it all the time, which is your kids are a sponge. So what do you want to saturate that sponge with? Your information or someone else's information?
Oh, that's brilliant. And it's
send them to school with a dry sponge, they're going to soak up what they hear from their peers. If they go saturated, there's not a lot of room because they already know the truth or know the facts or know what your family's belief system is. So they have that to rely on. So saturate. That's my advice.
And that is actually the perfect place for us to end our conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh.
And I'm going to put Lauren's contact information at the end. So thank you so much for your energy and your knowledge. And we will talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.